Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lumio Palooza Day 2. We have made it to the afternoon here, and oh my goodness, have we had so many great sessions today. Before we get started with today's presenter, which I am really excited about, just a couple of housekeeping things here for everyone. Just a reminder, please feel free to pop in the chat, introduce yourself. If you've got any questions throughout the session today, pop them in the chat. I'll be in there answering them. And if there's specifically questions for our presenter, I'll make sure that she knows, and we'll pop those on the screen, make sure she can demonstrate and answer questions as well. And then one last little announcement for you, just in case you don't know yet, we are running a Lumio Palooza social media challenge this year. And at the end of each day, we will be announcing winners. And actually, the presenter that I'm about to introduce won our challenge yesterday. In case you didn't know that, backstage over there, you won yesterday. But I'm super excited to announce our social media challenge. Here's all you need to do. During the session today, or any other one that you might attend later, please take a screenshot of anything that you see that might really be interesting and that you might want to do next year. And what you can do is on any social media platform, go ahead and post it. I'll give you guys a minute or two at the end of our call today. You can do that on Facebook in our Facebook group. It's called Lumio Educators, or you can use your preferred social media method. That can be Instagram, that can be LinkedIn, Twitter, X. Take a screenshot, jot a note down, post it, and you can post as many times as you like for the rest of today. Every post gets you an entry to win a gift card, and we'll have a couple winners towards the end of the day. All right, here we go. Y'all, I'm super excited for this presenter. If you've not met Dr. Devon Caldwell, this is her third year in a row presenting for us at Lumio Palooza, and I have missed being with Devon on the screen. I feel like we've met in person. I think one time, Devon, I'm bringing you on here, but I feel like she is like my long lost friend. Hey, Devon, how's it going?
It's so good to be reunited with you, Nate. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I did not know I won yesterday, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. Reach out to Holly and myself behind the scenes, and we'll make sure that you get your gift card. We're super excited. But thank you so much for being here, Devon. I'm going to pop your presentation up on here and take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nish. And thank you to everyone who's been popping into the chat and letting us know where you're from. I'm joining you from Manitoba, Canada, and you are here for Click, Create, Engage, Asynchronous Online Learning with Lumio. So thank you so much for choosing to spend about 35 or 40 minutes of your afternoon with me. So about me. I have kind of a unique role in education right now. I spend 2 days a week in a nursery kindergarten class at a band operated First Nations school. And then I spend a couple of days a week teaching in teacher education programs at Brandon University and Nipissing University. So I kind of have one foot in each camp, which I absolutely love. People always say to me, like, oh, who do you like more, your big learners or your little learners? But I enjoy them both, and my work just really complements each other. So it works out really well. You can see my contact information is up on the screen. So please don't hesitate to tag me on your socials, connect with me there, or reach out via email or LinkedIn if you have any questions after my presentation. Okay, so some of you have let me know in the chat where you're from, but I would also like to find out, what is your role in education? So today I am going to talk about how we can use a variety of Lumio tools to activate our students' prior knowledge and find out what they know. So this is a great way for me to find out a little bit more about my audience using a Lumio tool called Response. Now I'm just realizing that my class join link is probably not in the chat, so that might slow things down. So I just dropped it in the chat now. So please join via my Lumio class link, and then we'll actually get started on the question. So for the purpose of today's session, I'm leading a live online synchronous learning experience. So we're all in here together at the same time. However, what I'm talking about today is when we're creating content in Lumio and our learners are accessing it from different geographic locations and at different times. Okay, let's just look at our live results. So I've got 3 classroom teachers and someone else who is in the role of other so far. So right now we're seeing it in a bar graph format, but I can click on the circle and then we also see it in the paragraphs and pie chart. Okay, thank you everyone who answered that question. Looks like lots of teachers here. And although all of the examples I'm sharing today are from the university level, everything is completely scalable, kindergarten to grade 12 and post-secondary. Okay, I'm going to continue on in the interest of time. So my teaching context, so all the examples I'm sharing today are from Nipissing University, which is in North Bay, Ontario, near Sudbury. I'm from the Schulich School of Education. And I teach there in their Indigenous Teacher Education program, as well as their regular Bachelor of Education program. And since I'm in Manitoba and they're North Bay, Ontario, which is probably like a 25-hour drive away from me, all of the work I do for them is online asynchronous. So typically that is 9 weeks. So I do 9 weekly modules. Everything is uploaded to Blackboard. That's our LMS. All of my materials are digital. Our discussions are interactive, but they're asynchronous. And of course, all of the assessment I'm conducting is online as well too. So I'm going to show you how I do a little bit more about the learners I teach. This is a map of the province of Ontario. And all of my students are from the province of Ontario and they're all from Indigenous communities. And so they come to me with like very different school experiences. Some might also speak both their Indigenous language as well as English. And most of these students are already working in education. They're either working as educational assistants or they're teaching in classrooms of their own simply because of teacher shortages. And they bring really diverse skill sets as well as a variety of like life events and family commitments. Last year when I was teaching, quite a few of my students were rehomed because of water issues in Northern Ontario. So we were dealing with all of that turmoil in their lives too. So online asynchronous format was so perfect for them because it allowed them to access the learning from wherever and whenever they could. Okay, so we're going to do a similar activity. And I am using a whole class whiteboard and I have the world map on it. I have infinitely cloned a little map pin. And what I would like you to do is drag it and plot it to wherever you are joining us from in the world. So how the class whiteboard works is everyone can be in there at the same time. Since this is live synchronous, we're all in there at the same time. However, whole class whiteboards are available to students whenever they access them in asynchronous lessons, and they can see what their classmates have done before them, and then they can add their response. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people from the United States. I'm seeing one fellow Canadian here. If I plot myself, I'm very close to the American border. There we go. I see someone from over in Europe that looks like Spain to me. This is like a geography test. But this is a great example of how you might use a whole class whiteboard to find out more about your learners. So we're all in there at the same time. Okay, thank you everyone for participating. Gives me a really nice snapshot of where everyone is joining from. We saw one more person, someone from Ontario. Okay, so today we're going to address this key question. What is asynchronous learning anything more than slides, readings, and discussion boards? So when I was hired to teach online asynchronous in Nipissing University, the LMS they use is Blackboard. And Blackboard has all kinds of features in it where I can have like discussion boards, I can upload slides, I can post links, I can do certain kinds of assessments like short answer and multiple choice. And that very much is the traditional style of online asynchronous learning. But I knew that I wanted to teach. That's not my teaching style. And I'm a huge Lumio user and fan of the product. And I've used it in nursery and kindergarten for many years, as well as with my live synchronous students at the university level. So I knew that Lumio could provide the solution I was looking for to make asynchronous online learning truly engaging and interactive. So in our time together, I'm going to share some of the Lumio features that are so well suited to asynchronous teaching. I'm also going to provide lots of real examples from my practice and a roadmap of the 7 key steps in using Lumio for asynchronous teaching. Okay, so we've got 7 steps on our roadmap. And our first step is how do we connect what students know to new learning? And that's how I begin every lesson because we need to know what students know already so we can adjust our instruction going forward, as well as to activate their prior knowledge and really get them ready and engaged in the learning process. Okay, so often I use the Shout It Out template from Lumio. I absolutely love Shout It Out. I'm posing a question to you, just like I would pose to my students. What do you know about online asynchronous learning? And yes, we're all going to post and Shout It Out at the same time right now. But again, this can be used asynchronously where people just add their responses as they're able to when they're participating in the lesson. Shout It Out is very much like a digital bulletin board where people can attach like post-it notes to it. I just have one big slide, but you've also set it up with columns and categories, and you'll see an example of that later. I have you responding with words, but you also could change it so that students respond with images, and that works really well for younger learners. Okay, so I'm seeing that students connect when they want. Exactly. It can still be differentiated and engaging. Yes, I will show you what that looks like. Not much with Lumio, but I used other platforms during the pandemic. Yes, didn't we all during that dark time? Gives freedom to users. Usually students follow modules. Students independently solve problems or complete an assignment. Yeah, independent, that has very much been a trademark of online asynchronous learning. But with using Lumio's features, even though the interaction doesn't happen in real time, students are actually interacting and collaborating, which I love. Allows flexibility to the learner. Good for students who have a difficult time working with others. Flexible schedule. Um, I know that it is not live learning experiences and it's good for students who need extra practice or differentiation. Students work and learn at their own pace when it fits in their schedules. Okay, I currently teach virtually using online asynchronous learning. Well, maybe we should connect after this. Interactions are sometimes happening in chat. Yes, Canvas might be a platform or LMS. Help anxious students. That's right. Okay, thank you very much for your responses. So that's what Shout It Out looks like with words. But you also, of course, can set it up with images. So now I have a bit more of a sense of what you know about online asynchronous learning, which will help me adjust my presentation. Okay, so how do we find out what students know and activate their prior knowledge? One of my favorite things to use is response. And we started off with a response question where I asked you where you were, what your role was in education. So, for example, this is an actual screenshot from one of my modules, and we were exploring coding. So, how would you describe your experience with coding? I was able to see that 14 of my students had basic knowledge, whereas 10 had limited or no experience, 2 had intermediate skills, and no one was a coding pro. So that information was very useful to me and helped me plan my instruction more effectively. And we will talk more about response. You see that this is like a polling question that I asked. However, you also can use response for more content area questions, which fall more under like formative assessment. So you can find out what your students know about the topic as well. Okay, I also love using KWL, that students know, want to know, and what they've learned, as well as reference tickets to activate their prior knowledge and find out what they know. So when you're adding a slide in Lumio and you press the plus button right at the bottom, and the orange tile says activating prior knowledge. And if you click on that, it gives you all of these pre-created activities that are perfect for activating prior knowledge. Notice that Shout It Out isn't in there, and neither is the response, but those are tools that work very well for that too. So there's is the statement true or false? There's an entrance ticket. There's a draw what you know about the topic. So I'm going to talk more about how important it is to provide multiple means for students to share what they know. And Lumio is so well suited to that with the ability for students to record audio, they can draw, they can type, all of those different things. And when you're using like this entrance ticket, then it has right on it, explain what you know about the topic. You can unlock that text and change it to whatever prompt you want. So those are some of the built-in templates in Lumio for activating students' prior knowledge and finding out what they know. Okay, so step two, how do we create and share meaningful content? So this is really the meat of what we're doing because content creation can be so time consuming. And it's also how we impart all that important information to our learners. So we want to make sure we're doing a really good job of it. My students are meant to spend about 4 hours per week working on course materials. So I think that they've got to spend 4 hours a week working on course materials. I want to make it as interesting and engaging as possible. Okay. So first of all, whether you're into using AI or not, Lumio does have some great AI tools that are part of it. So if you need to create a lesson from scratch, so for example, in another course I was teaching, it was the first time I was teaching it, and I wanted to create a lesson about phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics, and what was the difference between all three of them. And so to get started, I just clicked on AI lesson. I explained what I wanted, and then it designed a lesson for me. So you can see the prompt I used here. Develop a lesson for teacher candidates in a teacher education program. I want them to learn about two models of technology integration, SAMR and TPIN. Students will become familiar with both models. They compare and contrast the two models. I set my grade level to post-secondary, know that that is an option, and my language was English. Click generate. It developed an entire outline for me, and then I was able to pick and choose what I want and edit the materials. So if you're starting from scratch, AI lesson creation is definitely a wonderful tool. Now, the other thing I love to be able to do is to import my existing materials. Sometimes I haven't taught a course before, but maybe I've presented on it extensively. Or maybe I've taught this course for years, but I'm switching over to Lumio. So I've got all of these pre-created materials. So you can import your existing slides. So when you go to start your lesson, you can click import, and then you choose where you get it from, like My Computer, Google Drive, or maybe you're reusing other Lumio slides that you use for a different purpose. So you can take your existing PowerPoints, Google Slides, Smart Notebook files, PDFs, and use that as the basis of your lesson, and then add the interactivity. So that works really nicely. So no, you don't need to start right from the beginning. Okay, another way of creating and sharing content is with YouTube. And you see that when you go to add a page or start a new learning activity, there's that YouTube tile right there. You click on YouTube, you copy and paste the YouTube video link into it, and then it pops onto a slide that looks like this. So the video is in the middle, the border is black, and that's all that's in there. It just says play. And it allows your students to access YouTube content in a safe, ad-free environment. And it keeps them from getting down that like complete rabbit hole with all the things that might distract them on YouTube. So you might share a video that has some kind of instructional content. Now, if you frequently use an LMS like say Canvas or Blackboard or Brightspace, you know that how much video you can upload for a course can be limiting. And so what I would do anytime I wanted to have a video of me talking, or I would often make like tutorials where I would capture my screen and I'd show them how to do something. I would upload those to YouTube first, then pop the link into a Lumio slide. And that made sure I did not go over my limit. And it kept the video right in sequence where I wanted them to access rather than them having to look somewhere else. So they can't click on anything else in YouTube. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. So if you hit play, it's just playing it on the Lumio slide. Okay, this is so basic, but I also wanted to mention that, of course, you can hyperlink content on your Lumio slide. So maybe I'm asking my students to learn more about STEM projects. So all I do is click on the text, drop down arrow, attach link. And then there's usually a little icon where students can click, and then it takes them to that link. So just know that you can add in all of those hyperlinks as well as part of your list. Okay, choice boards and menus. So in our shouted out responses, a lot of people were sharing about how asynchronous learning can be so great for differentiation. And one way I love to do that is through choice boards and menus. So I showed the slide because it's a really great example. This was from a presentation that I had shared at the conference. And I just had these 6 ideas of how teachers could use videos um, in their teaching. And so what I did was I uploaded this whole presentation I'd already created about learning with videos. And then I added in all of the links with Lumio. So you see, I just added in hyperlinks. And as my learners clicked on each thing, it would take them to an example of a school newscast, an example of an unboxing video, an example of a book trailer. And then they were able to return to that menu and explore the next one. So you see right here, it's just attaching that web link, or you can attach the page link. So if you want the menu to take them to another page in your Lumio lesson, you can attach a page link. And then I usually just throw a little icon or even a penguin at the bottom of the slide, and I'll put an arrow saying, click this penguin to return to the menu, and I use the page link again. So note that you can set up choice boards and menus with hyperlinks to outside resources or page links to things within your list. So Lumio has a fantastic template. It's right here. If you click the plus button and then purple tile graphic organizers, there is a tic-tac-toe choice board. And so that is already created for you, and you just pop your content in there. Let me show you an example of what that might look like. So this is a tic-tac-toe choice board, and I was actually using a choice board to help my learners understand and learn more about digital choice boards. So you see, I've got all of the options. I'm telling them that they're going to choose 3 activities, mark them off with an emoji of their choice. I've got all my links to the content. And then when they complete their 3 things, they click this hyperlink in the bottom left corner, and that is a page link, and it jumps to an exit ticket to complete. So that template is right there for you, and you can populate it with whatever you want your learners to learn about. Okay, step 3. How the audio makes slides more engaging and accessible. So something I love about Lumio is the different ways we can use audio. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is instructional audio. So I was either uploading PowerPoint slides and adding interactivity in Lumio, I was creating from scratch in there, and then I needed to narrate those slides. So you see in the upper right corner, we've got that head with the sound waves coming off it. If you click that, then you get a pop-up and you can start recording and you can narrate your slides as the instructor. And then usually just every module, I would draw an arrow to the audio instructions and say, please remember to click here, just as a reminder to my students so they didn't miss the instructional audio. And just a tip, what I've done, and this is a real cheat, I'm sure, but I would often have created in PowerPoint. I would upload my PowerPoint slides to Perplexity. I really like Perplexity. And I would say, I'd explain my context. I'd say, create a script for me to record that narrates each slide. And I would say, only pull from these resources. And that worked really, really well because I would have my script up on one side, Lumio on the other, and then I would just record instructional audio to accompany each slide. And sometimes I use Perplexity as a way to quickly generate a script based only on the resources that I supplied. Okay, and this is just what it looks like for your students. So you see we get this black and blue box, and that's looks of the audio on the slides. And I always do the arrow to remind them the first couple, and then they can click play, and then they can hear me explaining about the content. So that works really well. Okay, step 4. How do students demonstrate and apply their learning? So once they've engaged with the content, what do they do to really apply their knowledge and consolidate their learning? Okay, so Lumio has a whole plethora of game-based activities. You see right here, if you click the plus button, game-based activities, there are 12 templates. So this is an example of a memory match game. I used this when I was teaching my students about coding. I wanted them to gain some practice with the key terms. Yes, this does look kind of juvenile, like it's for young children, but I have found my older learners enjoy it just as much. So maybe you do a memory match game. If you work with younger learners, you can use images and text as part of your memory match. Okay, so once you click into the game-based activity templates, there is a whole range. And rank order match them up, and super sort provide a ton of student data you are able to access later in class sessions. I'll show you a little bit more about that. So you can see what all of these look like. This is rank order at the top where we're ordering something from either most important to least important or ordering something. This was my students ordering the steps in podcast creation. This is terms and definitions. So doing a sort where we were, well, not a sort actually, where we were matching up the key term with the definition. And here's the sort, super sort, benefits of video creation and myths about video creation. So those are all game-based activities. Okay, so you should have super sort right in front of you right now. I have super sort because it's self-checking. So I have some ideas about online asynchronous learning and some about live synchronous learning. And I want you to drag them to where you think they best fit. So students learning together at the same time, that's live asynchronous. In person or online, is that online asynchronous? No. So see how that's self-checking? So this is me modeling the activity. I can click on view progress, and I can see that 13 of you are in progress and one of you has completed. I can also click on student progress. And I get this warning saying that this would show your name, so I won't click on that. But this will provide me individual information about how all of you are doing. So many different ways to use SuperSort, whether it's content, like I'm talking about right now. I've also used it for classroom rules and social stories too. So many different ways to use our SuperSort. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to keep going in the interest of time. We've already talked about response, and I showed you how I might use a poll to find out people's comfort level with a new topic. We also can create content area response questions so students have an opportunity to demonstrate what they know. Again, within response, we've got AI to help us out. So there's Lumio AI Assist, and you can choose your question type, your grade level, how many questions, your language, your topic or prompt, and then you can connect it to local curriculum. And for example, there's all of the Canadian provinces and American states in there for curricular standards. You click generate, it spits out a list of questions, and then you can go through and edit those. So it's a great starting point, having that available in response. Okay, there's also a ton of graphic organizers that are pre-created for you that allow your students to engage with content and demonstrate their understanding to you. So it's that purple tile, graphic organizers. And then there is a great variety of graphic organizers that I absolutely love. And you can just add in whatever prompt or categories, and then your students can add their information and insight there. So this is an example of a graphic organizer I use for Venn diagrams. So a Venn diagram I use for my graphic organizer, and we are looking at SAMR and TPIN. You see I've got the instructional audio recorded there, as well as the directions, and then students were able to add their understandings about those two concepts.
Hey, Devon, can I quickly ask you just a good question that's in the chat? And you might be showing this later, but just in case you're not, could you just show our friends in the audience here, how can students access the lesson if the teacher is not hosting the Lumio lesson live time? So can you show us where we might go into class sessions and grab that asynchronous link?
Yes, I've got a little video coming up about that.
Perfect. All right. Well, then my friends in the chat, stay tuned for that. Thank you, Devon.
It's an important question. Okay, so I want to highlight how there's so many ways for our students to respond. So for example, on a graphic organizer or many of the different things you might use in Lumio, students can respond to drawing, typing, printing or writing with a stylus. They can also attack audio. So students can drag out an emoji or an image or a word, and then they click the drop down arrow and they can record their own audio. So students can respond with audio in addition to you providing audio instructions. That is really nice. I also wanted to just point out that there's immersive reader right here. An immersive reader can read any of the text on my slides as long as it's not a flattened image. So as long as it isn't like a PDF that you've imported from somewhere else. But any text that you've created in Lumio or imported as editable text, immersive reader should be able to read it. And there was a fantastic session yesterday morning on immersive reader. If you didn't catch that one, check it out on the replays. It was very, very useful. Okay, so attach audio. I'm just showing an example with an emoji here. Click drop down arrow, attach audio, record audio, or upload an audio file. So, and just with that UVL lens, providing as many ways as possible for students to access information from you and then share what they learn. And a lot of my Indigenous learners recorded their voices explaining things to me because many Indigenous cultures are very orally based. So I was really happy that I could provide that for them. Step 5, how do students reflect on their learning? So this would generally be how I would end every lesson to inform my instruction for my next module. So Lumio, again, has a tile you can click on that says questioning and reflection. And there are many pre-made templates that you can adjust with your own prompt to encourage students to reflect on their learning. So the one I'm showing here is 3 facts, 2 questions, and 1 big idea from a vignette my students had read about a teacher who used coding in her classroom. Shout It Out is also fantastic for students reflecting on their learning. And this is from one of the classes I taught, online asynchronous. Out of the 8 tools shared, which ones are you most excited to try and why? So all of my students just added to that Shout It Out at their own pace whenever they access the content. Is your lesson ready to share with students? So this should provide you with more information about how you do that. Okay, so first important tip. If you want your students to be able to actually do something on the slide instead of just read it and look at it, you need to either convert it to an individual handout or a whole class whiteboard. Group workspace does not work in online asynchronous environments because if students aren't in there all at the same time, it doesn't put them in groups and they can't work together. So I recommend individual handout if you want students to get their own copy of the slide to do something on, like say a graphic organizer, or if you want the full class accessing the same space at the same time, full class whiteboard. So either one of those. So just if you want your students to be able to do something to the slides, make sure you click on that magic wand and select individual handout or whole class whiteboard. And that's the sticky note template. And I had that as a whole class whiteboard. Important tip number 2. For shout it out and response activities, when you're setting them up, you have to select your mode. Independent work for live in class. If you're doing online asynchronous, that needs to be independent work. So you will click independent work and then finish. So don't forget that step either. Okay. And when it is time to assign it to your students, I recorded a quick little screen class and then I uploaded it to YouTube. And here it is for you. So I'm going to click play and it will show you what's happening. Okay, so there's your lesson now. You would click Assign New, and it sends it over to Class Sessions. You click on your Class Sessions tab, and then click Share Assignment, and then copy the link, and you post it in your LMS. So once the lesson is created, you just like mouse over that file, and then you click on Share. 1 second. You click on Assign New, and it sends it over to Class Sessions, and then you get the link from there. So that's how you assign that online asynchronous activity. So hopefully that answers everyone's question. Okay, once the students have completed the work, how do we review student work and check into that assessment now so we know how well our students are doing? Okay, so every lesson that you have assigned lives in class sessions. That's that 4th tab. So you'll click on class sessions and then you click on review. And that opens up the lesson and you're able to go through and see what all of your learners have done in it. So let me just show you what that looks like. Again, I've done a screencast of how this would look on my end. So I'm going to play that for you. Okay, so you see I'm clicking on class sessions. I'm finding an asynchronous module that I've assigned. And I click review. And now I see an asynchronous class. And then I'm able to go through and I find this response question. So I want to know how my students responded. I click review results. And it gives me a summary of their responses. I can turn it into a bar graph. I also can export the results as an Excel file, and I can then have those saved to my computer as a record. Okay, so other slides is something I might want to check what my students did. This is a match 'em up activity. I can open up the dashboard. We get a class overview. I also can click on student progress for individual student information. It's going to work that time I was doing it. And this shows all of my students' individual data. Again, I can export those results. You're also able to save PDFs to student work as well. That might not be something you're doing at the post-secondary level. Certainly, if you are creating like digital portfolios for your learners, those PDFs can be really useful. So that's what it looks like when you are checking your asynchronous learning activities after students have completed them. And this is a screenshot of some of the classroom data you might see. So this is from our match a month activity. This is showing my class overview and then just some metrics that we're getting. So my average class score, the most frequent incorrect answers, or I can click on most frequent correct answers. How much time was spent on the activity? Again, I can export that data. So there is a wealth of data that you are able to study as a teacher and use that to inform your instruction. And again, on that student assessment data, the individual data is available to you, and you can just click on it and it will reveal everything to you with the students' names. Okay, so putting it all together, I've created a little roadmap for you with the 7 steps. Okay, so to clarify, you send the students a link of the lesson on the LMS. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Then they just click on it from the LMS. And that's generally almost all I have them do in the LMS. Everything else is happening in Lumio. Okay, so here's the roadmap. So the dash that goes in the car is those UDL principles. So multiple means of expression for learners. And that could be attaching audio, allowing them to type, print or write, draw, or create a diagram. And then, of course, the ways you're sharing content. Not everything is just slides that are reading. There's the instructional audio where you're narrating the slides, the different kinds of media you're bringing in. Okay, so first step is activating prior knowledge with tools like Shout It Out, entrance tickets, and responses. On step two, creating and sharing content. So you might use AI lesson creation or AI assist in response or in some of the games. Import existing slides and add interactivity. Use YouTube videos, links to webcasts, podcasts, readings, etc. Okay, then you're adding your instructional audio. So you're narrating those slides. Maybe you're using another tool to help you develop a script. And then our fourth step is students have the opportunity to demonstrate their learning. And I shared a variety of ways you might do that, whether that's response, game-based activities, graphic organizers, individual and whole class activities. Step five is reflection in the learning. So allowing students to reflect on what they gained from the content and maybe how well it went for them. Maybe you do that with X tickets, shout it out, response, graphic organizers. Step six is assigning the lesson. And you need to decide if it's you'll want to use that independent work setting for shout it out response. You'll need to make sure if students are doing something on the actual slides that they're individual handouts or whole class whiteboards. Then you post your link to the LMS. And then your final step is reviewing student work and assessment data. And that can be found in class sessions, and you have the option to export it. Well, thank you very much, Kelly. I'm glad you find it useful. Okay, what is one thing you'll implement from this? I'm able to open the dashboard, and since this is live, live synchronous, I'm able to get a thumbnail of what everyone is doing on their individual screen. So I won't share that right now, but I can look at activity completion. 14 people have not started, 7 people are in progress. And then I also can export all your responses as PDFs. And then I can go back to the teacher handout, which is likely what I would be projecting or sharing on my interactive panel. And once we're all done today, I'm going to go back into class sessions and review what everyone shared that they would implement from the session. One other thing I wanted to point out was just make sure that you are setting this up as self-paced. So right now the lesson pacing is teacher. If you want your students to be able to go in between slides and live delivery, you'll want to keep that on student pace. With asynchronous delivery, that's not a big deal. If you want your students to move between slides, student pace. So I'm going to put that on student pacing so that I can move to the next slide. Okay, that brings us to the end of our presentation. I'll be available in the chat for your questions, and please don't hesitate to connect with me after. I will turn it back over to Mish.
Hello, hello. Wonderful, wonderful. And yes, someone is asking if I can post a presentation in the chat. Let me do that right now while I have that on my mind. Give me one moment. Here it is.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
There you go. There is Devon's lesson. So thank you so much, Devon. So for those of you in the chat, lots and lots and lots of great questions. I was busy typing and typing away. You'll notice that I posted in for some of your questions, YouTube links. And that is really perfect because that lines up with the slide that Devon has up on the screen right now. Our YouTube page is a great place to go for a variety of just like 1 to 3 minute video clips that teach you how to use a lot of the individual features that Devon told you about today. A lot of that is going to be, how do I do an individual handout? How do I start a shout it out? Different things like that. Those are all really great things for you to know as you start using Lumio more. Devon showed us a lot of different great things that you can use. And another place that you can go to stay connected is our ambassador platform. Devon is a longtime ambassador of ours, and that's a place to go to connect with educators all over the world that are using Lumio. I will drop the link for that in the chat as well for you. Give me one moment here. My computer is being a little silly with me at the moment. It's like, it's the end of the day. Why are you trying to make us work so much? What are you doing? Give me 1 second here. Here we go.
Here's doing that. I'll just remind you about the social media sharing challenge. So yes, I won yesterday, but there's still a winner for today. So please share and tag Lumio and tag me.
Yes, let's all take a second. If you've taken any screenshots during the call, go ahead and take a moment to post those in our Lumio Educators Facebook group or on Instagram, Twitter, X, or LinkedIn. Make sure you're tagging at Lumio Social and using the hashtag LumioPalooza 2026. And we will draw a couple of winners at the end of the day today. One last thing we're going to ask everyone to do to make sure that you get your certificate for attending our webinar today, and also for some feedback for both Devon and our Lumio team. In the chat, you will also see, and I'll put it up on the screen as well, your survey link. Once you complete that survey, it'll auto-generate that certificate for you that you can keep. It'll have your name on it, and then you can also log this as an hour for attending PD today. Devon, thank you so much for attending our session, or for presenting, sharing your expertise. I always learn so much from you every time I hear you speak, and I know that our audience has been really grateful here in the chat. So thank you so much for your time. And everyone, make sure that you attend a couple more Palooza sessions and let us know what you think. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Mish. Bye.